Good morning. Today is, well, it's Friday the 13th, and we are in the Green Mountains. We are giving a field test to our new camera. The last one kind of died in the electrical field of last week. I'll tell you that story as we get going. Today we are in the Five Bogs doing a random pattern sweep, kind of a random inspection to see if anyone's home, and they'll be around or they won't. So we'll find out how that works. But that is today's mission, other than testing out the new camera. Thanks. Now we're recording. So we're in the woods. Let me center the camera. If the video on this is a little shaky, this is my first use of the camera, so bear with me. It's also a muggy as hell day. Hello, Toad. So I don't know how that affects camera performance. We'll find that out together. It is not warm today. It's like 73, so it's like warm but not like majorly hot, but it is muggy as hell. So the video I didn't get to make last week because you're in an area that I call the electrical field area, and if anyone is familiar with that video from about 2 years ago, there is an area to the east of here where I am now that is home to a anomalous electrical field. It's there. It's been there for this will be the 4th year it's been in existence. It could have been there the entire time. I don't know the cause of it, but I have measured this with a EMF reader, and physically speaking, it's there. It just is. So it has made my drone act funky in the past, not be able to get out of safety mode. My phone has reset, like factory reset on me, on its own twice. This is an electrical field with a fairly high measure of output. And when I actually did get the EMF reader and take it to it, it exceeded the measurement provided by my microwave as a baseline reading, if you can believe that. I know this kind of thing is not my normal reporting, but like it or not, it's there. It just is. And this time around, I had the camera in my hand. It was off, but I'm assuming it went through that area, and the use of it was impossible. It would auto save every 2 minutes and was basically unusable. I got home and tried to see what kind of footage I could salvage from the day, and 90% of it was corrupted, again, presumably by contact with this field. And the camera was fried, and therefore I have the new one, which I'm using now, and will never take there for obvious reasons. Gimbal cameras apparently don't survive contact with this area, and so be it. So that's why no video last week. This week we're in the Five Bogs, and I basically am doing a pattern sweep through an area where there have been signs of life over time the most. So kind of playing an odds game with a random inspection today, following moose tracks along a lesser known trail. If they're about, they're about. If not, we will make other plans during the course of the coming week. But this is a trail I rarely, if ever, see anyone on. It's overgrown. It's all dewy today, so there's that. Again, the humidity is probably not helping hiking. I know I'm soaking wet right now, but not that you need to know that. But what I was talking about last week, I guess we'll cover this week. So kind of a rerun that you never saw. The subject was a couple of mentions in social media last week of the BFRO, and some people love them, some people see them for what they are, and some people hold them in low regard. The reality in my world of the BFRO is they are a large organization, and no one person shy of Matt Moneymaker really defines the group as a whole, because there's too many people nationwide involved. But a couple of areas to cover. This isn't more a critique, it's more just observation. So, and some personal dirt. So, and some other stuff that I covered in too, some history of my own involvement. I was trying to generate content not knowing if the camera last week was going to be usable. Now we know it wasn't. Somebody had actually suggested, before I get into the rest of the stuff, I get a metal detector and go back in there. That would be an interesting thing, because it does yield results when you do a controlled experiment. I went in there 2 years ago with an EMF reader. There's definitely something there. You don't have to believe me. Walk into that area half a mile, leave your phone on, and then marvel at what happens to it. Hopefully it'll survive. If not, then you know. But the point is that the BFRO is, as a group, not as Moneymaker, comprised of a wide section of people. It does have the biggest database. That's why a lot of these people stay there, because in the course of the critiques of the BFRO in Reddit, this being in Reddit, the circumstances were that every now and then you'll have an actual member chime in, and they're usually gracious about the criticisms, leading me to believe, okay, we're not crazy about every factor of it, but you hang around for the reports. I suppose I get that. I just don't get why I would have to pay $300 to go camping when I already do all these things and don't pay for it. I shouldn't have to. So, because my biggest critique over time has been, you want people to pay $300 for basically a guided expedition into Bigfooting. They have to bring their own gear, they have to bring their own food, and all that. And yet you have the audacity to guarantee a sighting or an encounter. That's a very strong indicator of hoaxing, because that's the only way that you can guarantee something can happen when you have no control over it otherwise. You know, when you're about, they're about, or they're not. They may avoid you. If you're camping with a huge group of people, they're very likely to avoid you, in my opinion. Most of what's ever happened with me has happened when I have been alone. When I am a target of minimal risk, where that being said, not to discomfort anyone, but when you're out here amongst them, if they were to be dangerous towards you, I liken it to swimming in the open ocean with a great white shark. He's either hungry or he isn't. If he wants you and you're swimming there, he's taking you, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. This creature is exactly the same thing. You're a female hiker and he's horny and he wants to take you for extracurricular activities. You probably are not going to have a lot to say about it. Unless you just happen to be hiking with somebody with a high caliber rifle that gets him in the ass and gets him to drop you before he's done carrying you off. Or maybe your food or whatever, but bottom line is, if they want you, you are gone. So the most aggressive I've encountered to date has been territorial behavior, but regions and individuals and mannerisms vary. Stances. Something to bear in mind. Just like bears. I've had some bears run away. I've had some bears walk by like they don't give two hoots I'm there. Never per se had an aggressive encounter with one, but some are more frightened and skittish than others. So there's that. The management of the BFRO says silly things on Twitter every week, and therefore I don't hold a lot of credence for anything they say. I will come out and say that. I am not a fan of the leadership of the group. There are two people I know that run the group. One is Moneymaker, the other one is another gentleman whose last name I believe is Bowles. I've had limited communications with Bowles. Oh, passing some poo, hold on. That could be anything. Probably an undulate, but anyway. And thank you to the mosquito that tried to land on my eye. I appreciate that, not. I've had limited communications with Mr. Bowles. He actually seems like a fairly nice guy. So, like I said, all in the BFRO is not bad. Moneymaker, on the other hand, does not help perceptions of the place. So, you know, what do you want me to tell you? That's my opinion. We are going to take a slight diversion while I keep my critique or observations going. Other people I know in the BFRO are people who, there are people that are in there that I know that are field researchers that I do actually respect. One I know from my previous group, and that's something I was going to cover last week in the video, but again, we had conditions that I knew were at risk, that were a risk rather. I didn't expect them to thoroughly fry the camera, but it did, and that's that. Walking by a tree break of some kind here. Move. I'm going to get the ball poker out of the way there. Let's have a look in here. And this is largely to get a scenic view on the camera to see how it handles the wider range. They say it has a wide angle lens, so we're going to kind of sample that for a minute to get. Part of the video is basically field testing the camera, so bear that in mind. If it seems like I'm doing inane things that are not thoroughly squatching related. This is part gear review. This is a Fimi Palm 2 gimbal camera. It's about $240 on Amazon. My old one was a Removu K1, a larger camera. This one's a lot smaller, so far its compact nature is easier to carry around in my pocket than the other one. So I guess it's going to be not so much I just thoroughly destroyed some poor orb weaver's house. Sorry about that. They basically have the same features though, so it's a fair contest of what my impression of this one versus the other one's performance were. And then you can kind of, I guess, take this video that I put out and compare it against the quality of other ones. They're both 4K cameras. The one thing the Removu always did, I guess I'm trailing off, so I'll work my way back, is when you save the files were absolutely huge. And it's a never-ending battle with my 2 terabyte hard drive to clean it up because it would actually use up all the space. The files were like multiple gigs at a time, so you get a couple of months of video going and you get low on space, and that becomes an issue. We'll see how this one does. And they're all MP4 files too, so I don't know what its mechanism was. Hopefully this one we'll find out. The reviews of this one weren't exactly kind. I looked at them after the fact, but I guess it depends on what you're actually using it for. Myself, I am using it mainly for walking and talking in the woods and covering things with a gimbal stabilized camera. I don't have excessive need. The occasional need for zoom, which I've done, or I figured it out. It's a little clunkier on this one than the other one, only because I know how the other one worked. Now that I know how it works here, we'll figure that out. But a lot of the features, or the methods, I guess is a better word, on the Removal work on this one. The selfie mode is 3 clicks of the button, and same thing basically here. It was the other one had like a finger trigger, but it was 3 rapid clicks and then the thing would move around. It wasn't perfect on the Removal, so if it's not perfect on so far this one works better, but it's day one. So the Removal at the time was 3 years old in my possession, so maybe they just get old over time. And I've also had that one out in 4 seasons. It was this one says right in the manual, if I bitch about it in the winter later, that you can feel free to remind me that like under 32 degrees, you're going to have potential issues with it. So we'll kind of figure that out as we get there. But getting back to the BFRO, I have a couple of friends from my former group that were in there, which kind of leads way into the nature of why I left that group and why it kind of died over time. By comparison to a large group like the BFRO, the previous group I was a part of, another group that starts with Northeast. If they're still functional, I don't know. They've had some hard times befall them. And they may not even be active now. There's like one person I know that might be still active. Another person passed away. Another person has health issues. I don't know how active they'll be under those conditions. Nice muddy area here to look for something. What do we got? We have moose. Seems like there's always moose and deer. Nothing else. So again, where all the hell are all these moose when they're clearly around? So where are they all? Anyway, so in the beginning, this group had a set of formal rules, and they made sense at the time because of the size of the group. We had a bunch of people from different parts of the country, personalities. Regional cultures is probably a fair thing to observe too. But over time, people fell off, and these rules were part of the reason why, because as groups age and you get like a core group of members that know each other over time, if this makes sense, you think after a while the rules are more detrimental than not, and that's what happened here in my opinion. The rules basically took on the form of where you'll have somebody who's heading up an HOA, and the reason they're there is basically so they can tell people what to do. And that's counterproductive. A group starts to lose its effectiveness when it becomes about the politics and not about the underlying reason you started the group in the first place, such as in the case of a Bigfoot research group. It started to become less about the research, in my opinion, and more about what I'll call the comfortable old shoe factor. One person kind of got all comfy that the areas that they would research, sorry, I swallowed a bug, were all within an hour of their house. The rest of us are driving up 4 hours each time, and we're only getting out twice a year with no consistency over active areas. And then if you don't, well, the thing is, if it's an active area and you have results coming from it, then that makes sense. But if you are basically in a situation where they're not active, why are you giving them credence? You go on to areas that might be active. That's why you follow reports and generate reports and get an idea over time. Preferably reports that are recent, so you have recent activity to follow up on. Otherwise you're going by historical patterns. But if you're just going because you like the area but nothing ever happens, call it what it is. You're camping. And over time that was one flaw. And again, if I make them feel like they're being attacked, then oh well, sorry, call it like I see it. Then you got the rules. So there came a point where the group kind of dwindled from, we'll say, from like 12 to 8 to 5 core members. Once you get down to 5 core members, and you all have known each other for years, there comes a point where the rules of the group kind of jump the shark and are kind of counterproductive. I'm sorry, that's how I feel about that. And a lot of the people that left said more or less the same thing. One person left to take up with another group that's next door to me now that I'll get into in a bit. Kind of moving my way back towards the BFRO. And Well, one guy just basically fell out of interest and basically said there's really no benefit to this anymore. And he did cite to me off record the rules. They're like, you know, they're kind of counterproductive over time. And yeah, they are. And there was one person that basically was acting like the HOA member that enforces them. So that's their daily dose of OCD reinforcement, and I get to tell people what to do. He made him feel important, which is, you know, that's all well and good, but for him. But there came a point where, you know, we know each other, we have a read on each other. There's only 4 people max going on most trips, so are these rules really critical? I say no, they're not. Then you had a couple of bad things happen, and the group is now dwindling. But there was a point where myself and another member were voicing some opposition to the status quo, and the people I'm talking about dug in their heels, and it got contested. It came to a head, and that's a lot of why I left. There is some other pettiness too, but I'm not going to get into that because it's old news at this point, and it doesn't really serve any purpose to resurface it. So basically, in the end, I left this group due to methodical differences, and just they weren't ever going to change. There's no point in staying there. Just they serve as a lesson of, over the long term, how not to start a group. I started my own group after I left, and a lot of what they did was kind of a model of what I'm not willing to do, because I'm just not going to do that, because it doesn't seem to work over time. I took the advice of one of the people. He's not in the group anymore because, again, he fell out of interest, but he like, I'd be a lot more open to it if it was more flexible. And I'm like, I agree with that. They never wanted to come down closer to my areas because you couldn't approach them the same way that his areas were approached. And you're right, you're not. You have to take a different approach down here, or down in the local vigilance area, versus up here. You can cover more ground because it's a bigger area, but the areas along the border to the south are what I would call more patchy. So there's more driving from site to site involved, unless you figure out the through points. In which point you do that. I've gotten some success in doing that too, but my feeling is their presence in those areas are during certain months, because I don't think the population, as limited as they are to the south, are consistently there. I think they move around. And they're typically around down there at least one time of the year towards the middle or end of November for some reason. And usually when you're looking at a mild winter down there and maybe harsher winter up here. Maybe just to escape the conditions. That's just a guess though. So that being said, one of the members fell off and fell into a group based out of the neighboring state. I'm not going to go into names because that's just going to stir shit. But originally this person, because I've had some kind of questionable dealings with them, and we're not on the best of terms. They haven't been the best neighbor. The friend from the Northeast group tried to recruit him into one of my groups on Facebook. It's a secret group for a reason. And it's made fairly clear in the beginning. It's a private group, and it is for a reason, because confidential information is exchanged here. And you agree to that or you're not in the group. Early on, this gentleman said, I share everything with everyone. Okay, well then you are disqualified from membership because you share everything with everyone. You are a liability when it comes to OPSEC. And I don't apologize for that. You made it very clear that you have different methods than I do, and good luck, but I don't have to let you in. He took offense to this and he threw me out of his group in Facebook, which is petty, but his prerogative. And I let it be for several months. Just a quick synopsis of our history. And after a couple of months, I said, what the hell, see if I can get back in. He let me in. And a while later, he threw me out again. And interesting thing with this is I decided to set up groups on every state where I'm basically active over time to generate reports. And one of them, unfortunately, was his home state. And I find it interesting when you're like, well, what did I do this time? Well, interestingly enough, the same morning, not the same day, the same morning I set up the group for his state, I noticed that one of his chief members of his group saw it, and within that morning I was gone from his group again. So I'm doubting that was coincidence. And again, petty, passive-aggressive, and his prerogative, but so be it. But over time, I got back in. I kind of let it be for a while, and then I asked on a day, and I was back in. The third time it happened was a little bit more. I actually asked him directly the third time, like, what's the deal? And I got this weird accusation. Well, you said this mean thing about me, blah, blah, blah. And I'll publicly state for the record, I have no idea what the hell he's referring to. But that was his reasoning. And he went into this whole, don't play dumb with me. I'm not stupid. Okay, whatever. And so I was out of the group again. Now, understand that this person has also been less than friendly to a couple of other friends of mine over time. And so I'm aware of that, and which is why I don't really go out of my way to curry favor with this person. It's not going to work out over time, and I know that. So, third time I got back in the group, I forget what said or happened in order to have that happen, but I was in again. The fourth time around was interesting, though, because that was definitely a time when I had made a comment on a person's wall, something to do with the BFRO. And don't get me wrong, this person's group is a BFRO affiliated group. Pardon me while I duck under this nice tree here. But it had nothing to do with him. It had nothing to do with his group, indirectly or remotely by interpretation of any kind. But it was a critique, and a legitimate one, of the BFRO. Basically, I made the observation, and this is like buried like 2/3 of the way down in the comments. So you had to be looking for stuff like this. And I basically said their database does not cover all the reports. They basically don't want to lean into the more woo-oriented ones. And I'm not really woo myself, but it's an accurate statement. They prefer the flesh and blood narrative, and that's what they push. The fact that I agree with it is irrelevant. They don't cover the whole spectrum. If I went to them with the electrical field thing, they'd probably just they'd rebuff me because they don't want to deal with that kind of shit. So, and I'm sorry, it's there. Go play with your phone around and see what happens. Anyway, so within, hello toads, a lot of toads out today. I was out of the group again, and it was again within 24 hours of this, and I got thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I bet he saw that comment. So again, I'm like, you know what? For the sake of giggles, I'll PM him and I'll ask him what's going on. And he got very defensive, and I found that interesting because his tone was very defensive. But he went back. You made this comment about me, I think. Now, the first time he accused me of this, he was dead set on this, that I had made a mean comment and I was Satan's toe jam because you said this mean, horrible thing about me. Like, no, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Interestingly enough, this time, he wasn't so sure. He's like, you may have. His words, his narrative was now, you may have. Right? So, which is it? You were sure before. And I left it with him. And if he sees this video and gets pissy about it, I'm going to say it again. What I said to him the last time was, like it or not, convenient or not, I've done nothing to you. And I've never done or said anything in your group that was not above board. So I'm asking to come back into your group, if I haven't had that deleted. And that is where I'm going to leave things. And I was allowed back in the group. But interestingly enough, there was a post there essentially calling me a troll. And that's what made me think, okay, I made that comment on this person's wall, and he saw it. And again, it had nothing to do with his group at all. But he took it personally, took offense, and that was grounds for him to basically post something nasty about me in his own group and then block me from the group so I wouldn't see it. And he's, funnily enough, he's calling me the troll. Okay. If that makes you sleep warmer at night, whatever, but... So this is my, this is my history lesson with this person, and yes, he is BFRO, and I don't really have any particular interest, yay or nay, in keeping friendly ties with him. I do have mutual friends in his group that unfortunately, if we go south, will be forfeited. It is what it is. Individual choices are made by them as well. If they decide to forsake me because he told them to, then that shows where they stand, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But I'm going to... The statement I made to him before, if he hears this, is the statement I'm going to make now. I've never dealt with him to his face in public. I've always dealt with it in personal message where it's not something that he has to deal with publicly. I've always been respectful of that. I've never attacked him publicly, despite whatever he thinks I said. And I have never disrupted his group. I didn't let him into my group long ago because he said he shares everything, and my group has more of an OPSEC mindset. And if that conflicts with your method, okay, you're just gonna have to deal with that. We are going to take a short segment break while I contend with some sweat and the humidity issues, and we'll be back in a bit though. Okay, we are heading into one of the 5 bogs. We're basically just doing a quick track check, and we're going to bop in here because we're in the neighborhood. Part of what a pattern sweep is. I guess I pretty much covered everything I wanted to in terms of community politics and the like. It came up, so it was on my mind. BFRO isn't for everybody. Not everybody loves them. Some of the more immature people out there take great offense when you question their greatness. Oh well. Like I said, I'm not going to lose sleep over that. If I'm removed from the group again because of what I said here, so be it. I will say that if that happens, I'm not going to be so prone to keep names out of it if it comes up again after that. I won't be as friendly to being diplomatic because, you're not making any effort on your front, so why do you have that courtesy afforded you at that point? Fair is fair. So in here in the past is an area that we have found, it's looking as flooded as where I left it before. It was an area in the past where we found indentations, but it's so overgrown right now, it might not be an exercise that is worth it. And it's proving it is, and it's pretty waterlogged too. There's the hidden stream, but there's a flat area over here where sometimes there's deer bedding and the like. There are some deer indicative of deer tracks, but the area this time around, I'm just practicing the downward zoom on this, is mossy nothingness. So I like the fact the center feature works exactly the same as my previous one too. So there's like some things on the new camera I don't have to learn everything from scratch and trip over old memory. Basically, a lot of the core features on a lot of the mainstream gimbal cameras seem to be about the same, so that's a positive. But so we're in here. I'm kind of doing another wide sweep to kind of gauge the quality of this versus, again, try to gauge new versus old. Old videos, of which there's 1,000. Where are we heading here? Is this going to get swampy or not? I see water. Yep, it's getting swampy. Hold on. This area. So yeah, I'm trying to get over to there and do a poke around in there if I can do it without getting completely swamped out here. You know what? Damn it. I hate that. There's parts of this that get on my nerves. I may call it here just because it's a nice day, and I'm kind of sweated out. Do I want to go all the way over there or not? Or I'm going to hop the stream over here and not go through all this. At least over there, if you cut to the right here a little bit more. Fucking son of a bitch! I just dropped down to my knee. That's how you hurt yourself. Don't do that. Cut to the right. So the lesson for the day, not so much survival, but just basic safety. If you know a way where that's not going to happen, stick with what you know. And that's what I shall do. We'll go around here. Because I almost did hyperextend something there. That actually probably will bother me later. Fun. But, oh well. Nature of bushwhacking. This will be somewhere where some of my more loyal fans will yell at me to be careful. And to either Linda, so noted. I know. Maybe even a thanks, Mom. But regardless, here we are. You say you like me in the field, and it's part of the price of seeing me in the field. Occasionally I have a minor mishap. And these things happen. These things probably need another coat of permethrin with the amount of wetness they've taken on lately. So, what is the least obtrusive? Here we go. I think we can get through here maybe to get inside the tree line without getting soaked. Yep, good. God bless the path of least resistance. Okay, so we're poking around in here. This is like a mix of, let me just kind of, now we're into this ferny, eye pokey stuff. The lower level kind of looks like this. It's not even terrain, it's bumpy, there's stuff on the ground. But that's the tap. That's what's on tap for the next few hundred yards. Till we walk out to the, I guess that would technically be the second of the 5 bogs. We've been here recently, but I checked these things because it is also the site of one of my sightings. So I follow up in here. Not every time, but you do keep tabs on them because there has been activity. So I don't usually see a lot of human presence in here. So when I do, I can usually trace it back to me. So I'm pretty much it. People don't want to come through this stuff and fall through their, and you fall down, get soaked up to their knee and funny stuff like that. Wonder how that works, huh? I wonder why that is. But anyway, yeah, just kind of throwing out an observation. And again, for now, I'm not going to mention names, but if they hear this, they'll probably deduce who they are. If we go through nonsense like this again, because you don't like my opinion, the best advice I can really give you is suck it up, because you have your loyalties, you have your experience, and you have your circle of friends in the community, and I have mine. And not everybody likes everybody, not everybody agrees with what everybody does. You may hold my OPSEC approach to some contempt, but I suspect we have different motives given your affiliations and mine, but I'll leave that where it is, lest I provoke more than intended. And again, make note, I'm not mentioning names. I try to make it as a rule to do that. If, on the other hand, you deduce and then react rashly, and we go through another round of nonsense. And I don't really mind the fact that I was removed from the group, although I do find it very petty and passive aggressive. I will say that I do generally detest passive aggressive behavior in men because it's just unbecoming. If that comes off as chauvinist, I'm sorry, but that is how I feel about that. But what is that exactly? What kind of poo is that? Somebody had the splatters. Sorry for the graphic nature of that, but if you're eating moss or whatever, apparently that's what that does to your system. So don't do that. It's probably a moose or a deer or some such. But anyway, that's my advice. Just grow up and just accept the fact we don't agree on everything. If that's a problem for you, well, you know. In the meantime, I've been in your group for several months now. I don't post that often, and I don't bother anyone, you included, so don't bother me. And again, the last time around, it's not really the fact that you threw me out of the group. That is your prerogative. It's your group. If you don't want me there, then that's fine. But when you go out of your way to throw me out of the group and then call me a troll, but make sure I don't see it, that is very, very passive aggressive. And that, I mean, that's basically cowardly. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. That's cowardly. Like I said, anytime I've ever had an issue with him, I've always gone to PM and I've handled it directly. And I don't always get the best response, but I mean, again, I came to you directly, I asked you, and you did this shit instead. That is not becoming. And I'm being, I think, nice in my wording too. So I am always willing to let bygones be bygones over time. So I'll take criticism and turn it into a pseudo olive branch if you watch this. And the past can be the past and the future can be the future. I have never, again, gone out of my way to do harm in your direction, and I have no care to. I will, however, respond to attacks. And that is effectively in my mind what I'm doing, like lately after the fact, because it's on my mind for other reasons, but I will not sit by and be attacked and not do anything about it, so get over it. If that offends, well, that's your thin skin, not mine. But if you want to get over it and move on and enter into a new era of détente, that's fine. This is just doomed to be swampy, isn't it? You can hear the mushiness, the mushy goodness of this mossy goodness. But it's also good for tracks if something walks across this, but apparently they cut around, which has been my theory over time. But anyway, we're going to take a segment break and not drone on about this too much, and we're going to do some photography in the middle of this and then start working our way back. So we'll be... Okay, I don't know why we started out a little high, but here we are, back in the woods. It's a small touchscreen I'm looking at, and right now that looks to me like it's kind of black and white looking. I'll have to see what that looks like when I get home in the larger screen. But anyway, we're on our way back out. There looks like the 5 bogs are all quiet today, so I came through because on the back side of where we were doing our little monologue, in recent years, it's been, hold on, let me get that little bloodsucker off me. They have been in that general area, and every now and then they'll be playful and let you know they're there. Not so much this time, but it's not every time, and that's the whole point. That's why when the VR4O guarantees you an encounter, there's only one way to do that, and the word begins with an H. So To the people that are serious researchers that are members of this group, when you start hearing stuff like that, you kind of have to, you know, I wonder if it's like that at that point you have to have an integrity gut check, because if you don't call out hoaxing as a matter, there's your obligatory moose poo. If you don't call out hoaxing when you're aware of it, you're inadvertently helping it along. And that's something that you need to, again, take ownership of. So if I had a friend and I found out they were hoaxing, they would be called out. And no longer my friend, because of course at that point they're going to get all pissy. A friend of mine had a friend who was basically doing some very, I'm not going to get into giving them credence, but they were putting out some things on YouTube that basically bordered on the ridiculous. And for anyone who is like even following this guy other than for humor, you're basically delusional and need some mental help. I'll be blunt. But once he found out the guy was full of hooey and basically trying to chase people onto his Patreon page for obvious profit, they had an explosive butting of the heads. And this person showed me they had integrity, so they're still my friend. Whereas the other guy kind of saw it coming, and I'm like, you know, let's not per se put my nose where it doesn't belong, but at the same time kind of keep an eye on this and see how it extends, because we both know at some point this is going to come to a head, and explosively. I'm trying to find the spot where I walked out before. I think it's here. Yep, because that track looks like mine. And so, you know, it's a matter that, yep, this is where we came through. Yeah, so it's a matter that he did the right thing, and that's kind of a defining moment. Because unfortunately, the purveyors of BS in this subject have no shortage, and that is something that's doomed to be there. So when you encounter it, you call it out or you don't, and that. So that being said, again, without mentioning names, there are a few out there that are well-known names who I know are aware of certain things and haven't said things. And I'm not going to generate a stink by naming them and calling them out right now, but you know of certain things, and where I kind of have limits in how I handle things with you is because when you do call things out, it seems to be selective, and that bothers me. So if I were to mention the person, people would be surprised but instantly know who they are. So we'll leave that where it is. Enough politics for one time. I don't like to delve into this kind of stuff, but it's quiet today, and that's what was on my mind. We're going to wrap up this video here. If you have suggestions or like or whatever and you haven't subscribed, please feel free. Thanks for watching either way, and we will see you the next time. And again, gauge the quality of this camera versus the other one by looking at old versus new, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.